Time to resume the Ursula's Return review, going on with Emerald Ink, one of the inks that probably got some of the best support this set so far. Hi everyone, this is D from Mushu Report, and I'm on a 6-part video series. This is video 3, where I'm going through all the inks for Ursula's Return, covering all 204 cards to see what are some of the best cards that you should definitely take a look out for this set. So let's dive right into the very first card. I'm going on with the team for Hercules with Hades Double Dealer. So Hades Double Dealer is the ability to exert, banish one of your other characters, and play a character with the same name as the banished character for free from your hand. So I'm not too sure this card is that great at the moment, simply because by the time you get its ability, it's already going to be turn 5. And a lot of the good characters, the high cost ones, are all already flat bonds with your Ursulas, your Elsas, and all that kind of stuff. The main one that I can see you playing this card is, say for example, with your Maleficent, and you can switch out a Maleficent low cost character to a Maleficent monstrous dragon. But then this Hades is for Emerald Ink. So there aren't that many great high cost characters for Emerald Ink at the moment, so yeah, that kind of makes it feel like this card was placed in the wrong ink. So I don't really expect to see this card that much. Moving on, Hera, Queen of the Gods. 3 cost, 1/3 with Ward, Protective Goddess. All your characters named Zeus gain Ward, and all your characters named Hercules gain Evasive. I kind of think that this one is the opposite way around. I think I mentioned it in the past video, but for Zeus, actually gaining Ward seems kind of weird, because the main Zeus that we get so far, a lot of them are just rushing in to crash in the opponent's character because they have rushed, but after that they can't really survive that long. So actually them gaining Ward doesn't really do too much, because they're just going to lose out from a challenge anyway, because a lot of them have very low strength. They just have, say, Challenger. So Zeus will actually benefit from getting Evasive a lot more. And actually it's the same case for Hercules. Hercules, a lot of them are the bodyguards, they have decent stats, and then that means that they don't really need Evasive, because Hercules with bodyguard getting Evasive kind of turns off the bodyguard ability. So that's really very weird. They would actually have benefited a lot more from having Ward. So yeah, Hera feels very kind of opposite, and I don't really find the value in playing Hera at the moment, simply because just yeah, her ability is kind of misplaced at the moment. Then we have Megara, Captivating Cynic. Megara is one of my favorite girls in Disney, and yeah, this is probably one of the best cards I would say so far for Emerald Ink for 3 ink, because when you play this character, choose and discard a card or banish this character. So it's really good simply because of the crazy stats with 6 willpower that lets her survive for very long, and she's just gonna keep questing with 2 law. So yeah, there's really no bad deal about this one. Her 3 strength, the only issue is probably just say Madame Medusa, but Madame Medusa is a turn 6 character play anyway. So if you're going to be going first and you're playing Megara on turn 3, then by the time the opponent's Madame Medusa came out, you have already gained like 8 law or 6 law in the process. So yeah, you already gotten your card's value worth by that time. So they can't wait for Madame Medusa. They need to challenge into her, which yeah, her stats are just that fantastic. I honestly say that many people are somehow not looking at this card simply because of the discard issue, but I think that this is a perfect card for, say, Amethyst Emerald, where you're going to go a lot of aggro plays, and yeah, I will definitely be trying out this card for sure. Then Megara, Liberated One. 5 cost 4/4 with Ward, and also when you play a character named Hercules, you may ready this character. Now this one is not that fantastic, I think, because 5 cost 4/4 with 2 law, you can ready her, then of course, then after that you can just quest again. But it's very, very situational. You need to at least have a Hercules, which means that this is for Emerald Steel deck. Then does it work out that well? I think it can work out, but I don't really like this kind of super situational plays, and then you're going to be lamenting that you could have won if you manage to draw into Hercules. I expect that situation to show up quite a lot, which is why, well, this is maybe more of a personal preference. I don't think this card is that fantastic. But I like the reference to the song though. This is definitely a fantastic card for artwork wise. Then we have Pain Immortal Sidekick. Vanilla, 2/4 stats, 2 law. That's the very basic vanilla. Yeah, enough said about a vanilla card. And of course, we have Panic. Panic Immortal Sidekick. While this character is exerted, if a character named Pain in play, your villain characters can't be challenged. So it's nice ability, you know, it sort of reminds me of Gun 2 where you can stop your opponent's characters from challenging in a sense. The problem is, both Pain and Panic are not villains, they are allies. That means your opponent just needs to take out either Pain or Panic first and they can take on all your other villains. So unless there's a way to, say, add on a classification, like maybe some type of item card in the future that says all characters on your board have villains. Unless something like that shows up, I don't think that this combo is that great at the moment, which it's kind of sad because the Pain and Panic combo is kind of nice, especially they got a pretty good combo previously. So yeah, hopefully we get something that gives the villain classification in the future. Next, we have Pegasus Gift for Hercules, which this is a very nice card that is going to be replacing all your Pascals in Amethyst Emerald, because Pegasus over here has evasive outright. It's a similar stat point as Pascal, but yeah, you don't have to worry about your evasive getting turned off. You can just keep on questing, which is of course nice. And the best part is you can just use it on turn 3 to shift into this Pegasus Cloud Racer. Shift 3 has evasive as well, and also the ability when you play this character, if you use shift to play him, your characters gain evasive until the start of your next turn, which is definitely a very nice play. Well, the thing is you won't really want to play him on turn 3, that means by then you only have a turn 2 character that has evasive. It can still be nice if you say it's a Flynn Rider, perhaps Charming Rogue, then you can get 2 lore from Flynn Rider and another 2 lore from Pegasus here. By turn 3, you're getting 4 lore and both of them have evasive for that one turn. That's actually a pretty decent play. Though I do think that one of the best plays for this is just in the late game even. Just have a Pegasus on the board, shift into this Cloud Racer, and then everybody is evasive, your opponent can't touch it, and unless they're playing something like Be Prepared or Grab Your Swords, then otherwise there's no real way they can just clear out your board because all of them have evasive, they can't be touched, and yeah, that's easily a game-winning play right here. Pegasus are definitely one of the very good cards for the aggro plays. Then we have the Fate's Only One Eye. All be seen when you play this character. Look at the top card of each opponent's deck. It's not bad in the sense that it has decent stat line as a 1 cost 2/1 character. It's inkable, so there's no harm to play this card, and you can just play this card just to at least see what is the next card your opponent is playing. If you don't really have another better choice for your 1 ink, then I'll say you should definitely consider this one. But if you have other choices, let's say with your other inks, Amethyst ink, you have your Chernobog follower, then definitely that is still a much better card. But if you don't really have any other choices compared to, say, playing a vanilla 1 cost 2/2 character, I would say the Fates is actually a nice card to definitely replace those vanilla characters then. Then we have the Muses, Proclaimers of Heroes.
Heroes like Hercules.
The Muses is one of my favorite characters in the show. I love their songs. Sadly though, the card itself is not that fantastic in my opinion, because whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with 2 costs or less to the player's hand. And it also has Ward, which is by right not bad, but you already have Kick Cloud Kicker to return characters with 2 strength or less to the player's hand. And this one is situational because you must have a song card at the right time. I'm probably maybe one of the more controversial opinions over here, but I'm not planning to play Ursula Deceiver of All for this upcoming set already, because you already have to use this kind of situational cards. If you don't have a song card, Ursula Deceiver of All is bad. In the same situation, the Muses just isn't really that great. Well, if the Muses actually had 2 lore, then maybe I'll consider her just simply because they still have decent stats with the good lore count. Then yeah, the ability is kind of a bonus thing, but it's not. It's just 1 lore with Ward. Ward is always good, but the ability is not that useful that I would really not consider this card. Okay, the last Hercules team card is of course Zeus, Mr. Lightning Bot, and this is what I mean because it's a 0 strength character. Whenever this character challenges another character though, he gets strength equal to the strength of chosen character this turn. But you see, that's the issue. It's only when Zeus is challenging another character. When an opposing character is challenging Zeus, he's at 0 strength. So, and Zeus here is the perfect example of what I mean with Hera, because Zeus is going to have 0 strength during the opponent's turn. It's going to get challenged and taken out. So what good is giving Zeus what? If Zeus had evasive though, then he couldn't be challenged that easily at least, and then he could survive the turn, and on the following turn you could choose to quest with him because he has 2 law, which is decent, or otherwise he could just challenge a different character instead, taking out 2 characters. So that's a really nice combo play. That's if he had evasive, but he doesn't. He has ward, which is kind of useless in my opinion. So yeah, Zeus is an okay card. I think that it's not bad, but a lot of the big strong characters that you have issues taking out with, let's say for example Tamatoa, the issue is they don't have enough strength compared to their willpower, so they're not easy to take out in the first place. So Zeus, not that fantastic in my opinion. I would still not play any of the Zeuses so far. Alright, so that's it for the Hercules card. Let's move on. Cricky, Lucky Cricket.
You are a lucky bird.
So when Cricky comes into play, your other characters get +3 strength this turn. And I really like this kind of cards because there's quite a situational play over here. The issue is just that, do you really need to play Cricky? Because a lot of the Emerald decks so far are currently kind of like tempo play decks. You want to just keep on gaining law and putting the aggression on your opponents with the amount of law that you have. So do you really need to challenge your opponent's characters? I would say that is the situations that might need it, because sometimes you just can't gain law that fast. So Cricky can really help out. But in other situations, then, well, there might be better 5-cost characters, which for example, Pegasus is definitely one of them. So this definitely depends on your deck build, and you can see which one you would rather go for. But hey, in this kind of the situations where I always say it's an inkable character, so why not just try it out anyway? Next, you have Diablo Devoted Herald, probably one of the craziest best cards for this entire set, because it's a 3-cost character, 2/2 stats, which is not fantastic, but Diablo has evasive. And also during the opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card while this character is exerted, you may draw a card. Now, let's not bother to talk about shifting into this Diablo. You're not going to need it, but there's a lot of fantastic plays over here. First thing first, just by Diablo alone, okay, he's gonna probably get to replace himself. Even if your opponent has an evasive character ready to challenge into him, then, well, he's already going to have to be exerted in the first place, which means during the opponent's turn, they have already drawn a card for that turn. So Diablo would have already drawn 1 card for you. In a way, the worst case scenario that you can get is you play this character, your opponent plays something like Baboom and takes out your Diablo. In a way, it's still a 1-for-1, so there's no real loss here. But the bigger benefit is, of course, if you manage to just use him to, say, quest for the following turn, then, well, he's gonna really get you a lot of benefit. Because once he goes to your opponent's turn, they'll be drawing a card for the turn while he's exerted, then that gets you 1 card draw as well. In my opinion, get rid of all your Prince Johns. Diablo here is such a much better value play over here. He's gonna pretty much guarantee you at least that 1-for-1 trade, or at least get you a card draw, because even if your opponent has evasive ready to just take Diablo out, by then you will have already drawn a card for the opponent's turn. And of course, that's if your opponent has evasive. If your opponent doesn't have evasive, then Diablo is just gonna be there quietly questing away while your opponent is just letting you draw more cards just because he's drawing a card for his turn. And yeah, there's so many crazy benefits here. And let's not forget one last thing, which is this for Emerald Ink, and you can play Bucky, because Bucky is a 2-cost character. Play him on turn 2, then Diablo will play him on turn 3, and your opponent is already going to discard a card, while on the following turn you can start exerting a Diablo, and your opponent is going to let you draw cards with visibility as well. So much benefits through Diablo. Honestly, this is probably the best card for Emerald Ink. Just enables so much plays. Moving on, there's the other version for a 1-cost, which is the Diablo Magnificent Spy. When you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand, which is also a pretty decent card. Compared to the Fates, which only lets you just look at one top deck card, this Diablo over here lets you look at your opponent's entire hand. But the issue is, of course, this Diablo only has 1 strength with 2 willpower. 2 or 1 willpower isn't really that different. A lot of cards just dish out 2 damage at one go, like a Baboom, like a Fire the Cannons. So in that context, actually the 1 strength is not that great. It's better for Diablo to actually have 2 strength, because with 2 strength, at least you can trade into other characters and dish out more damage. Next, we have have Gunther, interior designer with the ability when this card is challenged and banished, each opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. So basically like your 2-drop Cruella de Vil, it's kind of the same ability with 2 lore though, but 4 cost character, 3/3 stats, it's okay, it's interesting simply because with 3 strength, you will probably be able to take out the character that challenged Gunther, while at the same time you're going to be able to return one of the opponent's characters back to their hand. The only issue I have is of course that this is technically controlled by your opponent. Your opponent can decide whenever they want to challenge and banish Gunther, so that's not a fantastic play. I think that for now there's already a lot of better Emerald Ink cards for 4 costs they can consider playing. So yeah, I would say Gunther is interesting, but not for me at the moment. Then we have Gust 2/3 stats for cost 2 vanilla, very basic stats like your Donald Duck boss ring file. So yes, nothing much to say. Moving on. Hey Hey, Bumbling Rooster. So this is an interesting card simply because Hey Hey here is the first RAM card for Emerald Ink. RAM by meaning that it can get you more ink in your inkwell to give you more resources to play higher cost characters earlier. That being said though, Hey Hey here has a condition because when you play this character, your opponent needs to have more cards in their inkwell than you before you can put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted, which means you do have quite a couple of issues on the timing to play Hey Hey. Let me explain. If you are going second, that means you can't play Hey Hey on turn 3 either, simply because even if you are going second, you're on turn 3, your opponent has 3 cards in the inkwell, it's your turn, turn 3, you place your third card into your inkwell, and if you play Hey at that point, both of you have 3 cards in the inkwell, so you're not going to benefit. The only way you can play Hey and benefit from the ability is if it's turn 4 and your opponent has 4 cards in the inkwell while you still have 3 before you play your card into the inkwell for that turn. You play Hey first, get 1 extra ink, then you ink for that turn to kind of push you ahead and let you get ahead in the inkwell count. So the earliest you can get Hey's ability is if you're going second and playing this on turn 4. Now, if you're going first, then that's even worse because you're going first, then you're going to be the first person to ink on turn 4. So you will have more ink, so you can't play Hey on turn 4 as well. Then your opponent is going to have 4 ink, and followed by you on turn 5, you're just going to have more ink as well because you ink for the turn. Or even if you haven't inked for the turn yet, your opponent is still just going to have the same amount of ink as you. So this Hey is just not a good card at all because technically you'll never be behind in cards in the inkwell count unless you skip a turn to not ink. So I don't really expect this to see play at the moment. Okay, let's move on. Next, we have Jack, Connoisseur of Climbing. I should probably put this next to Gus. Okay, so when you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. So this is not bad in a sense because it's a way to just dish out a quick The Beast is Mine. In my opinion, this is basically a power creep in a way from compared to The Beast is Mine because The Beast is Mine is an action card anyway. So unless you're playing some crazy ways to reduce the cost for playing action cards, you're just going to be playing The Beast is Mine on turn 3. So over here, instead, Jack is also a turn 3 character. You can just play it straight away on turn 3 to give opponents Reckless. So yeah, there's no loss there, and you have a character that you can quest for 2 lore on your following turn and with decent willpower. In my opinion, Jack is a much better card over The Beast is Mine, and actually I think that could be actually considered if you are going into some of the closer games. Then if you need to consider playing The Beast is Mine, definitely give Jack a look. I think that this is a card that can be considered as a tech card if necessary. Next, you have Jasmine Desert Warrior. When you play this character and whenever she's challenged, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So kind of the extra combination of, say, Lucifer and Flynn Rider. When you play this character, you get to discard an opponent's card, while at the same time, when this Jasmine is challenged, then your opponent discards another card as well. So ideally, you will get to discard 2 cards from your opponent when she's in play, and at least that initial challenge, you get to discard 2 cards. But then if that is the case, so why not just discard it right away with Lucifer? Of course, Lucifer has the option that you can discard an action card instead, so maybe you don't get to discard 2 cards with Lucifer, but Jasmine similarly can also be taken out with, say, a single smash. So yeah, you're not going to be guaranteed able to take out that second card anyway. So in a way, they're kind of similar. I still think that better 5 costs like Pegasus is a much better 5 cost character, and Jasmine is uninkable. So those are the various reasons that, yeah, I think that she wouldn't really be used that much. Next, Pete, Born to Cheat. Whenever this character quests, while he has 5 strength or more, return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. Which this is again one of those things which I'm gonna say, why not just have Kick Cloud Kicker anyway? Because Pete over here is uninkable, that's already an issue, and you need to somehow boost Pete to have 5 strength. So all the Pete so far has this kind of common thing where they need to get boosted to get some nice abilities. The 5 drop Pete bad guy is a not bad card, but Pete Want to Cheat over here, it's a very situational thing because you only get to bounce a character which has 2 strength or less. If it was a ability to bounce any character, or maybe say a much higher count, say 4 strength or less, then maybe I'll consider it. But at 2 strength or less, when Kick Cloud Kicker does the exact same job on turn 3, because you only get to use Pete's ability when he quests, that means there's a turn 3 play, then yeah, might as well just play Kick Cloud Kicker. Why are you playing Pete? Moving on, we have Pete Rotten Guy. So 4 cost, 1 5 stat, 2 law, vanilla. Will I play vanillas at this point? No, I've said this in previous videos before. I don't think you really need to play vanillas at this point of time unless there's some reason that they have better stats, like say, for example, synergy with Antonio Madrigal. Otherwise, no, I'm not going to really play vanillas that much at the moment. So then we have Prince Philip, Vanquisher of Foes. So this is a 9 cost character that's kind of expensive with 6/6 stats and shift 6 and 3 law with evasive, and when you play this character, banish all opposing damage characters. So this is a very nice play in my opinion to actually combo with, for example, Emerald Steel. Then you have your Grab Your Swords, or Steel right now also has Avalanche which can deal 1 damage to each character. Then yeah, these are the plays that after that you can play Prince Philip and you can banish all the opposing characters at the same time. My only issue is that the cost is too high, and currently Emerald Ink is actually trending towards a more aggro, fast tempo play kind of deck, because that's what a lot of their cards are. A lot of things are 5 cost and lower and they gain a lot of law fast. So I'm not too sure that people will actually try out this card even unless they are playing a team deck for Sleeping Beauty. So yeah, that said, the ability is alright. It's kind of conditional. It's okay. But the cost of this card is way too high in my opinion. I don't think that it should be this high. Then we have Prince Philip, Warden of the Woods. 4 cost, 3/4 stats, and it gives all your other hero characters ward. So kind of like playing an Aurora Dreaming Guardian, just that it's limited to only hero characters. Definitely a nice card if you are kind of playing for a hero team deck with your fill from the new Steel Ink fill. Then yeah, you have a whole lot of hero characters. Then this Prince Philip can actually be a nice play for the deck. Aside from that, if you're not playing a hero team deck, I don't really think that this card is that fantastic because you're gonna get limited mileage out of it. Then we have Thor Flores, a vanilla character, 5 cost, 4/7 stats, and 1 law, which is a decent stat point because 4 strength gets over Madame Medusa, but I wish that Thor actually had 2 law instead, because 1 law at 5 cost character, it's a bit too high. It feels like something that would just get hit by, say, Dragonfire, or there are many other ways that you can go into this character and just clear it out. So yeah, you need that bit more mileage, especially once it reaches, say, 5 costs or more. Then we have Dodge. Chosen character gains ward and evasive until the start of your next turn. Now this is an interesting card because giving ward and evasive gives your character a very high chance to survive until the following turn. Now of course it's not as if it's guaranteed that they'll survive, because evasive doesn't mean that your opponent doesn't have evasive. There's still ways to take them out just by challenging if they have another evasive character, or otherwise even with ward there's always cards like, say, Lady Tremaine that can go around ward and still take out your character. So I'm not too sure about Dodge at the moment. It provides pretty good value, but you really need a strong character to actually give the full benefit for Dodge too. I think that there's cards like Isabella, which is nice because you want to make her have the ability to stay on the board, even though she's evasive on her own already, but she's actually giving you 4 law each turn. So might as well just throw on ward to her and make her much better. So yeah, that's kind of the thought for Dodge. I don't really have a best character to use this for at the moment, but yeah, I think that this is an interesting card. Then make the potion. Choose one, banish chosen item, or deal 2 damage to chosen damage character. It's a nice card, but as always, the issue is a couple of things. One is uninkable, and also the deal 2 damage is only to a chosen damage character, kind of like Stampede. So that's not a fantastic play. I will actually consider this just because you can banish a chosen item, but it's an uninkable. So that's the issue over here. I can't just play as a tech card and just ink it if I don't face off against an item deck. So yeah, I think it's okay, but again, this is one of those, there's chances are if you're playing it with other inks, like say for example against you're pairing it up with a steel deck, then there's a lot more ways they can get rid of item cards anyway. So yeah, not a card that I expect to see in play for now. Then we have Under the Sea. Sing together 8 costs, so that's a thought, and it puts all opposing characters with 2 strength or less on the bottom of their player's deck in any order. Now this is an improvement over Cloud Kicker for sure, because it actually gets rid of those characters by putting them on the bottom of their player decks. Now, is this that fantastic? As always, my issue with a lot of the Sing Together cards is they are all uninkable. Then of course, there's no real reason to say play this with Ursula Deceiver of All, because you get ability twice, it doesn't change anything. And then the issue is, how are you going to play this as a Sing Together? Then you'll want to play many more high cost characters unless you're pairing with Amber Ink for some Sing abilities. So yeah, I think that this is an okay card in the sense that if you are going off against hyper aggro with the Amber Amethyst, a lot of them are very low strength characters. Then Under the Sea here could be a game winning card outright to just clear their whole entire board of all their characters, and they actually all go to the bottom of their deck. That said though, it's not that easy to pull off because it's 8 costs, which is an issue that I currently have with all the Sing Together cards. They're nice, but they are all pretty high cost for the amount of value that they provide you at the moment. And Under the Sea, with the same restriction of 2 strength or less, at the moment just does not provide enough value for me. Next, you have Ursula's Trickery, a 1-cost action card. Each opponent may choose and discard a card, and for each opponent who doesn't, you draw a card. So now this card is kind of interesting because your opponent can choose to not discard a card, then in that sense you draw a card. So does that end up the same? You're just changing over 1 card draw for another card from your deck, so at the cost of 1 ink. And it's uninkable again. Emerald Ink has so many uninkable cards with cards that actually, like this card is a card that I would definitely consider playing if it was an inkable card, because worst case scenario, I just ink it and I can carry on if my opponent doesn't really have a card for me to discard. And the thing is, it's also up to the opponent. So I don't like situational cards, and I don't like cards that is decided by opponent how they play out, which this is one of those cases. If they find that their card in hand is important, they're not going to want to discard it, then you just get to draw a card. So it helps you out a bit by helping you dig into the deck, but yeah, I don't think it's that great at the moment. Maybe if it was a song card, I would consider this. Not at the moment for me. And we don't talk about Bruno. At a 5-cost song card, return a chosen character to their player's hand, then that player discards a card at random. Probably the best removal card in a way, not exactly, the best removal card in a way for your Emerald Ink. Because right now at 3 costs, you also have Mother Knows Best, and there's a song card for 3 costs, kind of similar. But Bruno is inkable, and at the same time, Bruno, well, we don't talk about Bruno, can actually make your opponent discard a card at random as well. And they're definitely going to discard a card simply because they at least has that character that was returned to hand. So if your opponent had no hand left at all, we don't talk about Bruno, effectively just becomes a outright remover. So I think that this is definitely a nice card, and this definitely gives me morale to try and push the Emerald Index to go back into 5 costs. A lot of the times right now, when you're playing Amethyst Emerald, where you're going kind of tempo plays, and you don't really need to go until 5 costs, but this is definitely a motivation for me to actually just go more into 5 ink, because yeah, it's a nice card to play with. And of course, very good to actually pair with the Pegasus, because there's a shift 3 character to 5 costs, and you can use it to sing We Don't Talk About Bruno. So yeah, these are all fantastic plays that can work out at the moment. Next, you have Hidden Inkcaster. When you play this item, draw a card, and then all cards in your hand count as having inkable, the swirly or whatever you're gonna call it. I don't know what's the official term for it right now, the flourish. And this one was actually talked about by Lorcana Villain in one of his videos reviewing the new cards, and I actually commented there as well, but I fully agree with his opinion because I don't think this card gives you enough value at all. Because when you play this card, you draw a card, alright, and then all cards in your hand count as having inkable, and that's not enough value for me because think about it this way. If you're going to play Hidden Inkcaster, then you're going to be playing a lot more uninkable cards to make use of Hidden Inkcaster. But if you don't draw in a Hidden Inkcaster, then you have a big problem because you're going to have a lot of uninkable cards in your hand. Alternatively, if you're not going to ignore that because there are some people who are saying, hey, this is just an additional ability, then yeah, if this is just an additional ability and it's not going to affect my deck building, then why am I playing Inkcaster, which only gives me 1 card draw for 2 ink? It's not that great. Unless, of course, I somehow play item team there. If I have a Hiram Flaversham to make use of this Hidden Inkcaster, then in the same way as Popsicles, then yeah, it could work out. But at the moment, I don't see any good way to make use of Hidden Inkcaster unless there's some way to let you make use of item cards in the Emerald Ink deck. Then maybe it can work out in that sense. At the moment, no, I don't expect to see this card in any meta decks at all. Moving on, we have Sign Contract. Whenever an opponent plays a song, you may draw a card. Very situational, and I still don't like such cards because if your opponent is not playing, say, a song steal deck, then they're not going to have that many songs to begin with. So it deters your opponent from playing their song cards, but all the value you're getting out of it is just drawing 1 card, and there is a big question mark if you're going to be drawing multiple cards off of this Sign Contract. And if you're not, then why are you playing this card? You might as well just play a Hidden Inkcaster and just draw 1 card anyway to begin with. So yeah, it's not that fantastic. I wish it kind of gave more value. Not a card I expect to see. Item cards for Emerald Ink somehow are just not that great at the moment. And then this is another one. At the start of your turn, if an opposing character has damage, gain 1 law. Also, damage counters can be removed. So now this is actually a card that I think is an outright counter and probably the best item card that Emerald Ink has so far, because this is a counter towards, of course, the Amber Ruby deck, which does a lot of healing with your Rapunzel, and now that they have Julieta to actually heal up all your characters, and with your Mulan Injured Soldier, with your Mother Gothel, then yeah, you're gonna be able to do healing there to draw cards. Then Vision Slap will outright stop those decks. And then the idea is that your opponent has damage, then can gain 1 law if that works out. So this is something that is nice to consider only if the meta goes into being a whole bunch of Amber Ruby decks being played. If there's a lot of them, then I'll say Vision Slap is definitely a very nice tech card that you should definitely consider putting in your deck, for the simple reason that if you end up facing a different type of deck, you can always just ink it anyway. So there's no big loss over here. In comparison, if you end up facing an Amber Emerald deck, they just play their Mother Gothel, they're getting ready to play their Rapunzel, play on a Vision Slap, and you've effectively just cut the whole deck synergy of being able to just draw cards off healing damage. So yeah, this is a very nice card that you can use it as a tech card only if Amber Ruby becomes meta. Otherwise, maybe not at the moment, but I will definitely be keeping my 4 copies of this card to just get ready in case that such a meta actually occurs. Then we have Hidden Code Tranquil Haven. Characters get +1 strength and +1 willpower, while here it is a nice card actually, I think. The issue is it doesn't have law, but considering the low cost and low move cost to actually move your characters there, it's something nice. Just that 1 strength and 1 willpower is kind of not enough for me to just make this a good useful card, because 1 strength 1 willpower is nice. For example, let's say you're playing a Ursula Deceiver, check your opponent's song cards, it's always a nice card. Then if you move her over to this Hidden Cove, it becomes a 2 strength 4 willpower character, which is actually pretty decent. So that's the idea to consider over here. I think that this could be a card to consider perhaps. I'm not too sure at the moment. Maybe we need more location-based support cards for Emerald Ink to make it more valuable to get benefits of having locations. Kind of like Peter Pan. Then, yeah, if there's such cards, then this Hidden Cove will definitely be played. At the moment, I think it's an interesting card. I'm not too sure I will make use of it. But if you think about it, it's a good way to make use of extra ink. The only issue is I still wish that this location had some law, then it will be a threat. At the moment, it's not really a threat that your opponent needs to get rid of it. So I would say this is an interesting card. I'm not too sure you'll really see play that much. The value it gives is nice for being how cheap it is. It's just that it's not big enough of a threat to me at the moment compared to say playing just another 1-cost character to just give me more lore. So yeah. Then we have Ursula's Garden, full of the unfortunate. 4 costs with 2 move costs, and also while you have an exerted character here, opposing characters get -1 lore. Now, this is kind of the one interesting card which I really thought that is a good way to actually hold off on your opponent, because the cost can be rather high. 2 move cost to move your character in, but the 4 cost at 7 willpower is already a pretty decent amount, kind of like the Queen's Castle. And then at the same time, it actually stops your opponent from questing. Well, not exactly, they can still quest, just that if they are -1 lore, and if they only had 1 lore to begin with, then yeah, with 0 lore left, not much point to quest, isn't there? And then, so I think that this is actually a great counter against, of course, the Ember Amethyst Hyper Aggro deck. So yeah, it's definitely a nice play. The issue I have with this is just 1 lore. I kind of wish that this had 2 lore similar to the Queen's Castle. Then this would be a much better card to definitely consider. And that's my take on all the Emerald Ink cards for Ursula's Return. So just to do a quick recap, some of the best Emerald Ink cards for now is Megara Captivating Cynic. I think this is one of the best plays that you can have for turn 3 for the massive value she has for her stat points and 2 lores. Everything is good. She's going to stay on the board really long. You should definitely consider her. Pegasus for the evasive package. 1 cost evasive is definitely nice. And of course, your 5 cost Shift Floodboard. They can come in and just give all your characters evasive for 1 turn. That's really good as well. We don't talk about Bruno. It's Inkable song card that your Pegasus can sing, or any 5 cost characters. And at the same time, bounces 1 opponent character and also discards 1 hand. That's always a fantastic play. And lastly is Diablo for the massive value it gives you. And those are some of the top cards for Emerald Ink this set. I think that you should definitely check out. Do you agree with my takes? Let me know in the comments below, especially if you disagree, then yeah, feel free to discuss. I would like to hear more from you all. And that's it for this video. Thank you everyone for watching. This is D Summon from Mushu Report, signing out.